I was looking at doing engineering, looking at कि यार life में ambition में IIT पहुंच गए तो सबसे बड़ी चीज़ हो सकती है. Now suddenly I have realized my true calling is economics, and now I'm able to go to the best possible school there. So that's how LSE happened. Hard work is going to happen regardless, right? Whether you work for a investment banking firm, accountancy firm, whatever you do. If you can do it for yourself, it just becomes so much more joyful. Almost out of a little bit of frustration, I said, ठीक है, हम 2 दिन में चालू कर रहे हैं. And I remember getting onto Photoshop and building a logo, and that logo just was Arial font, cash karo likha. We said blue and orange करेंगे. And that was it. And I told my tech कि इसका pouring pounds का white label बनाओ, and let's start. Let's see what happens. I think the second thing that has played very, very much in our favor is the fact that we were able to raise money from Ratan Tata. So we have leveraged that to, I don't think any other company has done it as much as we have.
Okay, awesome.
So Rohan, I think you can see a little bit tired faces all around. I'm sure this was your case when probably you were also in your college and you had to attend lectures and you were like, कब खत्म होगा ये, बस हो गया.
Absolutely. I completely understand your sentiment at this point. कैश करो की टीम में 4 बजे ऐसे ही चेहरे लगते हैं. अब तो 5 बज गए. So we'll try to make this entertaining.
So learning में जाएंगे Rohan, but first up, let me ask you something. What kind of a student were you when you were growing up? आप economics आपने पढ़ी है, and then sort of that transpired into you going to London School of Economics as well, which is termed as the Mecca of economics. I mean, this is my term. I don't know who calls it, but yeah. I mean, so what was that like for you growing up? Was the interest always there towards numbers? Were you a kind of a kid who sort of decided कि हाँ ठीक है, यही field है, मुझे इसी में अपना career बनाना है?
So typical Indian family. लाइफ में 2 करियर ऑप्शंस हैं, या तो इंजीनियर बनोगे या मेडिसिन करोगे, राइट. नाउ आई डोंट नो हाउ मच दैट वर्ल्ड हैज चेंज्ड, बट दैट इज़ द वर्ल्ड दैट आई ग्रो अप इन. सो इंजीनियरिंग वाज द वे फॉरवर्ड, एंड numbers were fun for me. I think that is something that I always gravitated towards. Good student, and good to the extent that always first second. So I did class 10, and then class 11, 12, got into that madness of preparing for IITs. And I think given the student that I was very confident that I was going to get through. So confident that I did not have a backup plan, none. And when the results came out, I was, I think, 1800th in that list, and they were, at least back then, IITs would take about 1500 students. You go through a point where you're 17, 18 years old. You've always been told that you're exceptionally good because that's the teachers and everyone's saying that bachcha kuch bada karega, right? And then the world just falls flat, right? And you're kind of thinking, I don't have a backup plan, right? So I hadn't applied for any other schools, and I was at a place where I said, I don't know what I want to do in life. And I think a lot of what I'm going to talk to you about will be centered around 2 themes, right? One is think, believe, work hard. And the second theme is going to be shit happens, but it happens for the best, and you will only know it further down in life, which is sort of a snippet out of one of the best commencement speeches by Steve Jobs, right, where he talks about connecting dots. At this point, I don't have a backup plan. I'm trying to figure out what am I going to do. And it so happens that in my school, a head boy 3 years senior to me said that, look, there is a college that I'm at. It's a liberal arts school in the US called Franklin Marshall College, which I had never heard of. And he said, you know what, I think this could be a great career choice for you. So I said, liberal arts school, kya karna hai? But the only sort of shining light out of that was that this was a school where, based on what I had done, there was an opportunity to get a 100% scholarship, right? So now, even back then, education in the US was prohibitively expensive, right? I think it was, back then it was like $35,000, $40,000 a year. Now it's much more, but it was a sum that, we could just not afford. But scholarship mil gayi. So I said, theek hai, let's see what happens, right? a kid who's only thought about engineering in life. I go to the US with a very clear mindset that computer science करेंगे, mathematics करेंगे, फिर देखते हैं क्या होता है. So I land up in this school in Pennsylvania, in a small town called Lancaster. Beautiful, beautiful campus. And first semester goes by, I'm doing everything that I thought I would do, right? Mathematics के advanced courses ले रहा हूँ, computer science कर रहा हूँ. Second semester, somebody said, yeah, there is something called economics, right? Now, if you come from the world that I was, right, and this is, I completed my school in 1999, so significantly older than most of you. Economics was not a cool thing to do, right? It was like, there was that hardcore science wala banda hoga. But I fell in love with economics, right? And it was, seeing that magical, like something happened, right? Because here I was looking at something where it said, yeah, there is a supply-demand curve, and this is how the world works, right? And there was a sense of science in it, there was common sense in it, there was business in it, right? And I said, धंधा समझ में आ रहा है अब. And suddenly, when I came back home, parents said, क्या कर रहे हो अपनी ज़िंदगी में? And I said, economics मेरा major है. They were shocked. They said, इससे क्या होगा life में? And that's where economics started for me, right? And along the way came another opportunity where this college had a one-year exchange program with the London School of Economics. I said, look, this is wonderful. I was looking at doing engineering, looking at कि यार life में ambition में IIT पहुंच गए तो सबसे बड़ी चीज़ हो सकती है. Now suddenly I have realized my true calling is economics, and now I'm able to go to the best possible school there. So that's how LSE happened.
And was it in LSE that you met your life partner, business partner, and probably that time a friend as well?
That time friend as well. So my co-founder of the business Cashgrow is Swati, and we met at LSE. At that point, obviously, it was boy meet girl, and we had like a whole Bollywood sort of thing happening, because
like was it DDLJ?
Utna bhi nahi, but we sort of got to a point where we knew each other well in college. मैं खाना बनाता था, and she was 1 year junior to me, right? So the story was that I'd gotten to a phase when I started work that I would cook a lot of food, and people would just come and eat, and they would clean up after that, right? So I said, खाना भी बन गया, बर्तन भी साफ हो गए, and that's when Swati and me started to get to know each other a little bit more. We were flatmates for 2 years. Nothing happened, and then suddenly, right, in a matter of 3 months, we went from those movies, right, where you see boy girl and they're like, I don't even like you, to hum shaadi kar rahe hain. So that happened pretty quickly, and something happened after we got married, right, at least in my head, where Swati jokes around saying that most married couples think about where to go on holidays. We were scouting business ideas, and she was like, I think at some point she was wondering who have I just married, because this boy was very happy working in financial services. Now suddenly he wants to do a business. So but yeah, that's how we met.
And interestingly, you guys went to Goldman Sachs also probably at the same time. Were you guys working together? What was your Goldman Sachs time like? What was her Goldman Sachs time like?
So I did my internship at Goldman. I had an offer from them, but somewhere that startup Kida was there, right? So there was a company, startup company, which was again into financial services. They were a hedge fund, and it was a bunch of ex-LSE alum who were running the shop, 5 people, and I realized that there's something just magical in being in a 5-member place. The flow of ideas, the depth of experience you get. You also realize that जो काम मेरा बॉस कर रहा है, जिस दिन वो नहीं है वो काम मैं कर रहा हूँ, right? So that level of growth is phenomenal when you're working at a small company, right? And that was exciting. That was super exciting. So I ended up joining a startup. A year later, when Swati graduated, she ended up joining Goldman. So she was with Goldman for about 5 years. I was on the startup side with hedge funds for about 8.
Right. So discussion around businesses कहाँ होते थे? घर पे होते थे?
हाँ, घर पे होते थे. So we would come back, we would talk about, and I would keep coming up with like a new idea, saying that how about this, And then we would go into that exploration phase, business plan banayenge, go to market strategy banayenge, what can go wrong, what can not go wrong. And I would discuss it with my parents, and I think for the longest time my parents were like, कुछ कर रहा है but clearly अपना job तो कभी नहीं छोड़ेगा, so चलने दो.
So what was your job like? If I have to ask you, which sector was it in? What kind of role that you had there? And वहाँ पे learning कैसी थी आपकी?
So I was a trader. So I would trade anything that was fixed income. So from plain vanilla bonds to credit default swaps to structured products, right? So if you go back to 2007, a lot of stuff blew up, and we were building a lot of that stuff that blew up. Very, very fun, very complex, very esoteric in what we were building. Clearly, across the world, financial assumptions were a little flawed, which is kind of what led to all of this. But it was very demanding, it was very, very analytical. It was also, a place where the demand on attention to detail, right, and that is something that I cannot emphasize enough, is something that I learned. More than, data and analytics and all of that you learn across multiple things, but there is nothing more than the obsession towards detail that financial services teaches you. I remember with my boss, and we would do these, when we were pitching a new product, PPTs would get made, and the challenge was, can you find one misplaced full stop? Typos to dur ki cheez thi, right? Misplaced full stop. So every sentence, full stop hai nahi hai, kahan pe hona chahiye. And I've literally had presentations thrown back on my face because a full stop was somewhere else. But you know what? It builds this obsession to detail, right? Today when we are thinking about building UX products, I can look at a Figma file and I'm looking at this saying, ye spacing theek nahi hai, right? It's just, it's everything through life, right? And as I said, right, getting a presentation thrown back on your face, shit happens, right? You're thinking, what madman am I dealing with? How does it matter? And when you look back, it is so true that everything that goes wrong will come back, and if you can find that silver lining, magic will happen.
Swati was working at a firm which was dealing with investment banking. Were there fights? Because ऐसा होता है काफ़ी टाइम इन्वेस्टमेंट बैंकर्स घर पे नहीं होते, तो पहले तो खाना बनाना, बर्तन धोना, 2 साल साथ रहना सब हो रहा था. वो टाइम पे कुछ अलग हो रहा था. वे यू ऑल्सो गेटिंग टू नो मोर अबाउट द लाइफ ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट बैंकर्स. क्या चीज़ें ऐसी हैं जो हमें पता नहीं चलती है, हम ओवर हियर कर जाते हैं. सो प्रॉब्ली यू मस्ट हैव लुक्ड एट इट फ्रॉम अ वेरी क्लोज क्वार्टर. सो कैन यू शेयर दैट एक्सपीरियंस अ लिटिल बिट?
There are two things that I learned, right? That investment bankers work long hours. And the second thing I learned is that investment bankers work long hours. And it never stops, right? So look, my peer group today is, maybe 16, 17 years working, right? And friends have made partner level, MD level, वो आज भी long hours कर रहे हैं. And I think that was one of the big realizations for us, right? That hard work is going to happen regardless, right? Whether you work for a investment banking firm, accountancy firm, whatever you do. If you can do it for yourself, it just becomes so much more joyful. And I think that was one of the very pivotal reasons for, Swati to say that, look, I'm done. I want to do something else.
So when this decision came along, that's probably the time when you guys thought of Pouring Pounds. Tell us a little bit about what Pouring Pounds was. How did you guys come up with that idea? And what essentially was the problem that you saw in the market that you wanted to fix back then?
So I'll tell you the business, right? I'll tell you the product that I discovered. So there was this concept of cashback that was there in the UK market. It was also there in the US, it was there in China. And the idea was very simple. You come to a cashback website. From cashback website, you go to any e-commerce platform, right? So a Debenhams.com in the UK or a Booking.com, Hotels.com. So you're just doing this one extra click. Now on that website, you book whatever normally, right? And just because you've gone from this cashback website, you now get some money in your account, and that money you can transfer back into your bank account. So this was the concept that we found, right? And I became a user, and then I started to tell my friends about it. And there were two kind of eureka moments that happened, right, along the way. So the company that I was last with, I told my office manager, Louise, and Louise was doing flight bookings, hotel bookings, stationery bookings, and she was doing all of this online, right? And I told her that, look, Louise, you must start using this cashback site. It'll be wonderful for you. 6 months later, she comes back to me and says, I have saved 8,000 pounds. And she said, I am funding my child's education with this money. So that was moment one. Moment two happened much more closer to me, where my parents were going on this holiday with 8 of their friends to Australia. And my father said, look, I need your help. Can you just book can you plan the entire itinerary? Can you book all the hotels and just, figure things out? In my head, I was like, this is very interesting. I am now going to become Louise. I personally made 1,500 pounds. So I said, look, how do we take, and the other amazing part, right, of this product was that as I was telling people about it, the feedback was, I love it, right? And I couldn't think of a product where the usage, the user experience is a strong word like love. It's such an extreme emotion, right? And that's when we were like, look, out of all the ideas that we've thought about, I think we want to do this. So we said, look, let's go out, let's try this sort of business. And then, along the way, we started to figure out, look, how do we think of tech? How do we think of a tech owner? How do we think about what is Google? What is Facebook? What is search engine optimization, right? So these were all learnings, right? We started to get into that mode of trying to figure out how do we build this business. And at that point, what was very clear for us is that the first strategy of pouring pounds, right, when we started off, pure play cashback business, right? So the same model that I've just explained. But what we realized was that we will run it as a B2B product. So we would go to newspapers, we would go to trade unions, we would go to just communities, right? And tell them that we can run a white labeled cashback product for you. So what we took away was the challenge of customer acquisition. So we said, customer to aapke paas millions hain. Let us come and build that for you. So that's how, pouring pounds started, and then eventually sort of India happened.
But isn't it a difficult decision to make, because आप एक अलग country में बैठे हो, both your wife and you decide that you will not continue with your jobs anymore. Now it's a financial decision that you have to take as well. When do you know in your mind that now is the time for us to take that plunge? Because a lot of these students they'll also work for a few years and they'll eventually decide that they want to start something of their own.
Yeah. So I think there are multiple reasons why people end up doing a startup. I'll tell you what were some of pivotal moments for at least me. You get to a point where you want satisfaction, right? You want to be in a place where you say, I love what I do, and that is why I'm doing it. And I think I'd reached that point, at least in financial services, that I was not finding the joy. And I remember reading, in fact, watching this video where Bill Gates and Steve Jobs are, talking, and, Jobs talks about, the importance of just loving what you do, right? And he said, what, if that is not there, it doesn't matter how hard you work, you will always feel unfulfilled, right? And I was definitely at that point where I was not waking up feeling excited that, look, I'm going to do something today. At the same time, we were rational enough to know that we have responsibilities, we're staying in an expensive place, and, we can't just jump ship. So I think the first year and a half of it was, I was continuing to do my job. Swati had left. I would wake up at 5:30 every day, figure out how do I give 3 hours in the morning, figure out how do I finish work, figure out how do I kind of just find time, right? And we kind of balanced our way to a point where we said, look, this is working, right? We'd actually established a revenue stream. We'd signed our contract with the Daily Mail, which was the largest newspaper. We had a lot of things in the bag, right? I also feel that anyone who's thinking about a startup, right, and I think many of you, as you go to B school, will find groups where there are so many ideas out there, right, and there are so many problems in India to solve, which are there for businesses. I think what you need is a belief that nobody can shake, right? And I'll tell you how every startup conversation will happen when you present this idea back to the people that are closest to you, i.e. your parents, number one. They will look at you and say, startup karna hai, revenue model kya hai? And more than any VC, your parents will tell you everything that is wrong about your model, right? Because they will tell you, revenue kahan se aayega, customer kahan se laoge, what do you know about digital marketing, right? And the only way that you can move forward is by saying that I believe in it more than anybody else. Because everything that will go wrong, right? You can have beginner's luck, but everything that can go wrong will go wrong. And the only way to move forward, to pivot, is the belief that you have. And I think both Swati and me had that belief, that conviction that here is an idea that is working in the US market, is working at large scale in the US market. And we just had enough confidence that, if nothing works, we've got enough, we will find a job again. So there is that back of the mind ki, look, I'm capable enough that नौकरी तो मिल जाएगी, right?
Right. And when did you realize that US market, UK market में काम किया है तो India market में भी काम करेगा? What was that time when you guys actually wanted to make a dent in the India market? And how was that decision made? Was it like an overnight decision? Was it like a planned decision? What all market research you have done to come to a conclusion that this is something that probably is the need of the hour of the market and we should start this?
So we bought the domain cashgrow.com in 2011. Cashgrow happened in late 2013 in India. But we knew that at some point, we will want to be in India. Now at this point, things in UK are going really well. We've got Daily Mail, we've got a bunch of other things happening. And our team was in India, right? Tech was India, a lot of ops was India. And like many good things, many beautiful ideas that have happened in my journey, they don't necessarily come from the top, right? And I think it's a wonderful realization to have. And my team kept poking, saying that it's time to start, right? And every conversation I would have with the team saying, kab chalu kar rahe hain? Now, obviously, when you're living in London and there are people in India telling you, do this, you're also thinking, do I not do it? So I remember at one point, almost out of a little bit of frustration, I said, ठीक है, हम 2 दिन में चालू कर रहे हैं. And I remember getting onto Photoshop and building a logo, and that logo just was Arial font, Cashgrow likha. We said blue and orange karenge, and that was it. And I told my tech ki iska pouring pounds ka white label banao, and let's start. Let's see what happens. You know what? It just started to move. We were putting all our efforts in the UK, but the fastest growing product was Cashgrow. And that's when, one of the other realizations you have is that you cannot ignore data. The numbers is reality. You have to take emotion, anything else out of it. Look at the number, follow the number. Within a matter of 6 months, 7 months, the number of users that we had in India were far greater than what our UK business was doing, right? And we were not even focusing on it, right? That's when I think, we realized that, okay, look, maybe we're looking at this the other way around. We also knew that the valuation or what you can control, right? At least I won't even say valuation, we were not even thinking that much. We knew that our ability to control destiny, our future, is when you have a B2C product. Because in B2B, you kind of have somebody else to manage. B2C, you control your fate. We then decided that, look, we'll do an angel round. So we went out and we said, ठीक है, हमारे दोस्त हैं, let's see what happens. We set off trying to raise $250,000. In a matter of 3 days, we had commitments of $750,000. We had people that had never met us saying that हम आपको $25,000 दे देंगे. Again, great thing to have happened then, but in retrospect, we gave up so much equity at the worst valuation that you look back and say, why did I do that also, right? But did that and again gave us a lot of confidence, right? So while we had that money, then we said, okay, we now are in a position to say, okay, let's build India. The other thing we realized very clearly was that we cannot be in 2 boats at the same time. While India was happening, we were also very clear that our UK business will have to shrink, right? Because the confidence that and a lot of these angel investors are your friends, right? So there is also a lot of baggage you carry with that happening. You cannot let people down, and obviously, you have those hard conversations that bhai tera paisa hai, 99% startups fail. Here stats देख ले, and but they gave us that money.
थोड़े अमीर दोस्त बनाने पड़ते हैं एंजल इन्वेस्टर्स लाने के लिए.
हाँ, प्लानिंग करनी पड़ती है. इसलिए हम यूके से इंडिया आ गए, सोचा यहाँ नए दोस्त बना लेंगे, वो अगर नहीं रहे तो they can't even find us. But look, it's amazing, right? How many people, jokes apart, will support you when you go down that journey.
Right. Luck एक side में रखते हैं, and there is on the other side you just mentioned that you were seeing data and you can't ignore it, and definitely yes, because you are in the kind of a business where data is probably the master, right? What sort of data and the changes were you seeing here? Was it just because of the population of this particular country? Was it the user persona that you were dealing with? Was it the kind of behavior that you saw as Indians? Because हम सबको, as Shantanu was also mentioning, कि subscription model क्यों नहीं काम करता है? हमें अगर 10 रुपये कम मिलता है तो हम switch करते हैं Zomato Swiggy में और Blinkit या Swiggy Instamart में. ये हमारा nature है. So क्या आपको वो समझ में आया? At what point did you understand and realize it, and what data was helping you to support this thesis?
So at that point, I think there were two realizations, right, that were very, very, very loud and clear for us. One, the pace at which digitization was happening in India, nobody had seen, right? So we were looking at Google reports, McKinsey reports. We were also realizing how much capital is flowing into India. So when we started, Amazon was just setting up. But Flipkart had become large. Jabong was there, Myntra was there, bunch of companies setting up. The whole conversation for any VC was, what's the India strategy? We were talking to a lot of people in finance in India saying, what's the outlook? And everyone was so bullish about the growth of e-commerce and digital in India that it was just not possible to avoid that. Right? And we said, the core pillar, right? So in 2011, when we set up UK, the reason we were not even thinking India was at that point, e-commerce India was primarily travel. Yatra tha, Make My Trip tha, Flipkart was negligible, and there was no other sort of traditional sort of company, right, in the e-commerce space. And that's when we were so clear that if that is not there, if the base ecosystem is not there, then what's the point of giving cash back? As that started to change, that's when we realized that, look, now our business makes a lot of sense. Obviously, the data then supported it. So that was one key thing. I think the second realization, right, that we had was, and as what you just said, right, that as people, we are so money conscious, right, and which is there, right, I mean, it's so innate to us, and I don't think it's just an India thing, maybe we're a little bit more, but it's there across the board, right? People want to save money, and if it's easy enough, then people do it just that much more. And in our business, our the core concept was that we are going to give you free money on something that you're going to do anyways. So we're not saying shop at Myntra. We're saying if you're going to shop at Myntra or Amazon or Flipkart or Ajio or anywhere else, we're going to give you money back. Just use us, right? So that was the second realization, that in a country like India, free money should work.
Right, and how do you convince these players, like the e-commerce players that you mentioned, the Amazon, the Flipkart of the world, how do you go there and pitch your self? And now the space has become huge, so I mean your customers have also increased. They're probably one part of the customers and the other part are the users that you're catering to. What is the proposition for them? Why would they come and shake hands with you?
Before we go to the likes of Amazon, right, let's try to understand the problem at a much more fundamental level. You've started a business, right? So let's say you're selling shoes. You figured out your supply, you figured out your website, you figured out your tech. The ecosystem in India today for payments is very, very solved, right? So you could go to a Razorpay, JustPay, PayU. There are 20 players who will, literally in a plug-and-play model, solve payments for you. Right? You then think about logistics or warehousing. Very solved, right? So you could go to a delivery, a Blue Dart. There are 20 people, right? ShipRocket does it beautifully. You then come to the most fundamental problem, which is how do I sell my product? So let's say hypothetically, you are buying all of these shoes from your factory in Bathinda. You have your warehouse there. But you're now trying to figure out that how do I make you my customer? Now that's when the hardest part of the growing a business problem starts. Because when you start to think about, okay, can I grow my business through Google, Facebook? You can, but it is so expensive. So for most D2C companies, getting to ROAS of 1, and I'll explain that, return on ad sales, which basically means that if you have a sale of 500 rupees, are you able to spend 500 rupees on it? पैसा नहीं बन रहा है, right? आपका तो, we're not even talking about cost of goods sold, profitability, logistic cost. 1 ROAS चाहिए. That is a challenge when it comes to Google, Facebook. For more mature brands, you're looking at between 5 to 12, 5 to 14 of ROAS, right? Now, when we go to them, we say, you know what, and let's now think about with the Google, Facebook model, it is again not performance. Google says, when somebody clicks on your ad, you pay me money. How much you pay is a function of how much you bid for it. The bidding is a competitive landscape. It's a black box. So for example, let's say that there is a keyword called Rohan loves to party. उस कीवर्ड पर कोई बिड नहीं कर रहा. गूगल फिर भी बोलेगा 5 रुपए दो. किस खुशी में यार, कोई नहीं बिड कर रहा. 1 रुपए में करने दो ना, नहीं दिखाएंगे 1 रुपए में. So the question is that model is a black box. It's optimized for Google's profitability, right? Not for your problem. Now in this ecosystem, we go to a brand and say, we've got a bunch of customers, right? And we have tons of information and insights about these customers. And you only pay us when I get you a transaction. So I am now in the same boat as you. You and I are going to win together, right? Unlike what Google and Facebook are doing to you. Now let's figure out what is the price. So Amazon says, look, I can get my sales from Google at 10% on fashion and 3% on electronics and 1% on mobile phones. So we say, fine, let's put that as the number. That becomes my commission. Now effectively, when I drive a sale to them, so let's say hypothetically, I sent 1 million people to Amazon. Nobody shops. Amazon pays me nothing, right? So they love it. Now, so with an Amazon, they are large. They have enough capital. They have a massive brand spend. So therefore, companies like us are, going to be a small part to that overall ecosystem, right? But when you talk to smaller companies, startups, at all levels, right? I think every D2C partner brand that you use is a partner of Cashflow today. And the reason they work with us is because we're effectively making their cost cheaper, and we're saying it's guaranteed sale. We in fact go to the extent of saying that if somebody buys your product, they don't like your product, they decide to return your product, you still don't pay us. So we're saying we are completely in it with you, and that becomes a very easy sale.
Lovely. In case you're wondering, this comes under affiliate.
This model is called affiliate marketing.
Yes. So, if you're finding it difficult, we do have a program. We have a digital marketing program, certification program that we run in association with HUL. That was my plug here. Do understand how these things work. I mean, I also am understanding as I speak to people like these in my journey, because I don't have a formal degree like you guys are going to have. So it's fascinating, and we have this program. Go check that out on Altuni for sure. Moving back to your journey, you said that how you are probably trying to convince these D2C players or e-commerce players there. How do you convince the customers? Because that's also a very tricky game. And although you say that I'm going to save you some money, for me to trust you becomes difficult, okay? Because I want to know, ये मेरे को चीजें खरीदने के पैसे क्यों दे रहे हैं?
It's very hard to win customer trust. One of our largest barriers to break is getting you to understand, or getting the customer to understand, that where is this free money coming from, right? Because imagine if you go somewhere and somebody says, do this and I'll give you 10 rupees. And you're thinking, free का तो पैसा कहीं नहीं मिलता. So all your alarms are up, right? कि now something is happening. अभी वो पैसे ले रहा है मेरे से, अभी कुछ और करने वाला है, बैंक अकाउंट में कुछ करेगा. And therefore, a lot of our communication, a lot of our ads are actually trying to decode the model, right? So when we think about redoing our onboarding journey, one of our first messages is click, shop, we get paid, we pay you. So one of our lessons is, how do you be transparent, right? So the whole messaging is, I will not try to hide anything, right? I will be very, very upfront on where is the money coming from. In fact, one of the ad campaigns we're looking to build right now is how does Cash Karo work? And very, very aggressively talk about it. I think the second thing that has played very, very much in our favor is the fact that we were able to raise money from Ratan Tata. So we have leveraged that to, I don't think any other company has done it as much as we have. He is there in every email that goes out. He is there in as many places as possible. And you know what's so inspirational through that process is that how much trust that one man's photo can build for a brand. You know, we've had people, partners who, and large partners, right? So we were, in fact, I was talking to the marketing head of Symphony. Symphony is a big brand, right? Largest brand of coolers, controls about 55% of the market. And when I met him, the first thing he said is, "Aapki company mein Ratan Tata ne fund kiya hai. I am a fan." I was like, you know what? I don't know this man. He doesn't know anything about what we do. But just the fact that he has put some money just legitimizes everything. Every brand, after a point, requires advocates. And the advocates has to be the customer. Customers telling customers that, hey, this is a great product, use it.
I really want to know the story of how Ratan Tata came to know about your, brand. That's one. How did that deal actually work? And कल मैं एक स्टार्टअप करूँगा, मैं रतन टाटा को रीच आउट करके फंडिंग ले सकता हूँ.
You know, a lot of this is right place, right time. And it's one of the other lessons we learned along the way. And the lesson is very simple, just ask. The story is that Mr. Tata was on the board of Kalari Capital. And every year, and this was a phase where he had invested in Snapdeal, invested in Ola. So he was personally looking to, participate in the Indian startup ecosystem. And every year, Kalari would present 3 companies from their portfolio, their recent investments, to Mr. Tata. Now the question is, why did we get selected? I don't think we were the sexiest business that Kalari had invested in. I don't think we were the largest company at that point within the Kalari ecosystem. I think we just asked Vani, right? And I think we asked her 2-3 times. In fact, the first time when we were signing the check, one of our only requests was, can we pitch to Mr. Tata? I don't know why we were the only 3 companies that were selected to pitch to him. But somewhere I also believe that many of them may not have asked, right? Because when you think about it, the doubts that you will probably create for yourself that will Mr. Tata invest. He's just invested in Ola and Snapdeal, and Snapdeal was a big thing, right, back then. Will that happen? And you kind of answer that question for yourself, so you don't even ask. And I think because we asked, and this is what he said to us, right, and which is something that validated a lot of our thing, that in a country like India, you are giving people free money. What is not to like, right? And this is his response to when we said, "Sir, what's your feedback?" And that was the only thing he actually sort of said, and his investment folks are the ones that are asking you a lot of questions, but that is all he had to say. We had that meeting, 1 week went by, 2 weeks went by, I think a month went by, nothing happened, right? And we were like, look, we gave it our best shot, dekhte hain kya hota hai. At one point, I think Swati got a call, and this was like at 8:39 on a Friday or Saturday, and the person calling was Venkat. Now, it so happened that we had this fresher who had joined us, Venkat. Now, it so happened that Venkat was also the name of the person at Mr. Tata's office. We went from literally saying, "Hi Venkat, what do you want?" to, "Tell us, sir, what's the decision?" And it was just like, "Sure, Mr. Tata is going to invest." And we said, "What more? Like, would you want to see us again? Do you want to meet us again? What's the formality?" And he said, "No, that's it."
Let's talk a little bit about the kind of competition that you have. So probably Cash Karo was one of the earlier ones in the market, and we have seen similar kind of companies also trying and build the space. I'm not very aware of it. You might be able to tell me better as to who actually is your competition, and are you scared of the competition? Are you intimidated by them, or the kind of market share they might eat up, because that might just severely affect your business?
In our core cashback side, we've been lucky where we were the first to raise capital, which allowed us to build a strong team, which allowed us to grow faster, which allowed us to raise more capital. And that didn't happen for a lot of very, very awesome companies that we compete with, right? And I think that has allowed us to meaningfully grow the business. Also, when I think about competition, and I think it's true for a lot of businesses in India, India is so large that getting a small piece of this pie can allow many companies to do well, right? So we look at competition in trying to understand what are some of the great ideas they're coming up with, what else are they doing, how are they solving common problems. But I think the market is so large that we can all coexist, we can all create extremely valuable, profitable businesses. So that's not really the focus. What we are also realizing is that competition can come in many, many other ways. So right now, we're seeing some of the largest apps trying to figure out how does affiliate marketing work. One of the things that they're seeing, and something that we've been obsessive with, is that it's a business that just makes money. Our numbers compared to what you would see in the larger startup ecosystem are very different. We've been thinking profitability since the first day that we started. Every transaction makes us money. We do not do anything that is not profitable. We know that we are not profitable today, but we can change that today. We are investing a lot in new product. We're failing a lot of times, right? And that's where our capital is going, but the core business makes money. So I think from a competition side, not as worried, but at the same time, I think what we've been doing very successfully is thinking about new product. The world is changing around us, and that gives you opportunities. Today we have 4 businesses. There is Cashkaro, there is Earnkaro, there is BuyKaro, and BankKaro. They all target different niches. So a BankKaro product is tapping into the fintech side of things. We realize that if you have a base of 20 million customers, why not sell them loans and credit cards? We have so much data about this that why not launch that as a product? When Meesho happened, one of our core realizations was that Meesho is effectively building supply and selling and using WhatsApp as a channel to get people to sell the product. We are sitting on supply of everything in e-commerce. So why not create a product that enables all individuals to become affiliate marketers? That's where Earnkaro happened. BuyKaro is a marketplace product, right? Where we're looking at what CredShop has done and saying, hey, what stops us from doing the same thing, right? Because the ecosystem is same. And what I'm confident is that is what gives us the edge. We're thinking ahead, and given the experience and the kind of awesomeness that is there in the Cashkaro team, a year down the line, we might be sitting on another product which we've not even thought about.
What usually happens in startups is we try and focus on newer things that are up and coming, and we try and invest our money and time and energy there. And sometimes what we do is we put our fingers in too many buckets, right? How good or bad is that as a practice for somebody who is running a startup to invest your time and energy in so many different products? Is it better to focus on one product, achieve profitability, give your investors confidence, and then building further products, or is this the preferred route that whatever you're taking right now?
I think focus is critical. I think we would have not done Earnkaro if we were not at a place where we felt that the team behind Cashkaro is stable and will continue to build it. Earnkaro started off as a very small pilot, right? And something that we continue to do is we will have a lot of pilot experiments. When I talk about 4 products, we've probably created 40 products that don't exist. And we've just realized that you just need to fail fast, but that should not distract you from the core. So there is a team that is going to continue to obsessively focus on Cashkaro and the growth of Cashkaro, but they will not get distracted with the newer products. I think being distracted is potentially disastrous, especially in a startup ecosystem.
Rohan, as a founder now, I'm sure you now focus a lot on hiring, building your team. What is the kind of talent that you look for? What are the kind of qualities that you look for people in what you're hiring and what you're trying to build?
I think there are two things that we probably obsessively look for: common sense and attitude. The world around us is, we're not doing rocket science, and we're solving very simple problems of communication, human interaction. If I'm sending a WhatsApp as a marketing message, it's a WhatsApp, right? We are all communicating, but are you able to put enough common sense to saying that, how do I approach this user differently from a different user? It's a common sense problem, right? You don't have to necessarily go to have gone through a massive educational background to get there. The second part is attitude. You can learn everything, and more importantly, in the world we live in today, we are relearning everything. But I think it will fundamentally change how we do work. It will fundamentally change how we optimize our time, right? So for example, marketing teams should just use ChatGPT to say that, hey, here is the persona, give me 20 ideas. Designers should be able to use ChatGPT and tools like Midjourney and DALL-E and others to just create images and content and not, save that time, right? Obsess on something else. So in some sense, you're always relearning, and the only way that you're going to obsess on learning is through attitude. So I think those are the two things that we obsessively look at.
Lovely. One last question. We have spoken about a lot of your success. Tell me a failure story that you kind of keep with you, that ignites the spark in you every time you're down.
Lots of failures. But I'll tell you one that, again goes back to the shit happens thesis, right? 2012, 2013, Swati and me have left jobs, we've started pouring pounds. And, we did a angel pitch at London Business School. And pitch went really well. And, we had a lot of people coming in. And there was one person who came and said that, look, we run a listed company, and we are the only company that is building mobile apps for banks. We kind of have a monopoly around that. And that's a big thing, right? So one single company doing it for Santander and Metro Bank and a bunch of other people, right? And they've listed a year back. So this is like the ultimate tech thing, the hottest thing that's happening, right? And this company and these guys are like, look, we would love to have a chat, and we'd love to kind of dig in more here. So we go through this whole discussion, and they're like, look, we love what you're doing. I think there is an incredible fit in what you're doing, bringing the whole loyalty concept, the offers concept back into all the mobile banking apps. And we love it so much, we want to buy you out. So you're now literally a year and a half into your journey, and somebody's now giving you this. So they were buying us for £1.5 million, so about $2-ish million. And obviously that's a lot of money for, when you're thinking that, look, we've just been at it for a year and a half, right? We start going through those motions. And the day we're about to sign, they say, look, unfortunately, we can't. That's probably one of those stories that we take back and say that, and at that point, again, you're like so excited, everyone at home is excited, you sort of validated all the doubts, right? So when that happened, I think that was sort of, it was, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a failure or whatever it was, but our last round was raised at $151 million. Now, when we look back and say that, awesome that it didn't happen, right? Because, and I cannot go back and rewind and rethink so many times, right? When the shit happens, but when you connect the dots now, it all works out, right?
Lovely. Thank you very much. On that note, I will open the house for final set of questions, if any. I am seeing one hand there.
So really loved the insights, great inputs. So if I think that there are other companies such as Amazon itself, which are giving itself cashback to the customers, right? And there are other platforms such as Paytm, if I can say, or other payments app. They're also giving cashbacks to the customer. So isn't it that obviously it's additional, and they will not be able to reimburse that particular amount into the bank account because it's coming into the wallet somewhere, because that's a restriction, only restriction. So how do you think about that? That is one question from my side. Second is that in the starting, when Google Pay came to India, right, they started giving cashbacks. I mean, a lot of cashbacks, even 1,000, 2,000 rupees to the customers, Indian customers. And how do you think about the mentality of Indian mindset, the consumers, and the UK and US person who are using these kind of apps, and who are targeting, they are seeing that if I'm using this app, I will be getting this particular cashback. How do you think of acquiring the Indian subset of customers from rural areas which have these kind of mentalities, not from urban areas?
So I think in your first question, the beauty of what we've built is that our cashback is on top of everything. So for example, let's say that Amazon says that buy this product, you apply this coupon code, and I will give you 50 rupees in your Amazon Pay account. Our cashback will sit on top. Now the reason it sits on top is that we are basically taking from the cost of acquisition, the cost that Google would, or the cost that Amazon would have normally paid to a Google and Facebook. We're cheapening, we're reducing that cost and sharing some part of that back, right? So luckily our cashback will always sit on top. So it's an extra benefit always. In terms of users, see, one insight that we've had is that fundamentally, whether it's Brazil, US, UK, or India, the core mindset of users is very similar. Right? Everyone loves to save money if it is available easily, right? So which is why if you think about airline programs or general loyalty programs, they're very standard, right? So whether it is a Sainsbury or a Tesco running it, or a Walmart running it, or a Spar running it, very similar in nature. I think for us, in terms of acquiring these customers, it really is a cycle of how do we build smart, profitable strategies, right? So, we've been talking about Google, Facebook doesn't work, but doesn't work for us also. And a lot of the obsession is what else do we do? And the challenge that my team has is Google, Facebook are a 20-year phenomenon, but brands were built way before that. Right? How do we rewire our thinking to say that digital is not the only way? Right? Are there other smarter ways of doing it? And every now and then you will have businesses that challenge. So a physics wala came from nowhere. Nobody knew about him as this edtech guru. But you know what? Just look at the numbers. So, and that's the challenge, right? Can you think differently? Can you do it differently versus everyone else? And I think that's kind of going to be our journey, our main challenge in how do we acquire Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 and rural India.
Hi, I'm Saksham and I'm going to be joining NEET Mumbai. So how do firms like Cashkaro, which primarily rely on affiliate advertising, plan to compete with ever-growing technologies like programmatic advertising or DSPs? So what do you think the future holds for affiliate advertising specifically?
We'll have to keep innovating. Right? Currently, as the landscape stands, we're meaningfully cheaper to programmatic, to Google. Our objective in building Cashkaro is not necessarily affiliate marketing. Right? Today, affiliate marketing is a method. But we're now going out and saying that how does the whole influencer and content creator and individual ecosystem work? So the whole genesis of Earnkaro is to say that, hey, can we make every individual a marketer? So for example, we've recently started to work with financial service companies. Now, a credit card company would effectively pay us, let's say, between 2,000 to 3,000 rupees for every card that is taken out. Now, effectively, I say, hey, let me give the power to individuals. Let me find ambassadors who will say, look, how can I earn another 10, 15, 20,000 rupees and make it really simple? Now, if you think about that model, programmatic can't compete with that. If you think about the pure power of referral marketing, you can't compete with that. But obviously, we have to layer in a lot of technology to be able to get there. At the same time, we have to keep thinking other products, other ways of doing it. And they don't necessarily have to pivot around just affiliate marketing, right? Because then our world will be too narrow, right? And if something fundamentally shakes there, suddenly business doesn't exist. So it's extremely, extremely important in order to survive, to be nimble enough to keep changing. And I think that's the only way we will survive.
All right. I think we have to draw close to this particular day. It's been a long day for them, it's been a long day for us as well. We have been speaking to fantastic people coming and speaking on this particular podium, and I thank you very much for taking our time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks once again for coming
Thanks a
in
lot.
and sharing your journey and telling them about so much about the business that you have built or the kind of vision that you have for the future. A big round of applause for the final time today, guys.